fluorescent lights of Save More Grocery hummed their tired song above the aisles. It was 7:30 on a Tuesday evening, that dead hour when the store emptied out and the day shift workers counted down their final minutes. Marcus Hale stood in aisle 12, pretending to study a shelf of pasta he had no intention of buying. He wore a plain gray hoodie pulled low over his forehead, dark jeans, scuffed sneakers that cost more than most people's rent, but looked like they came from a discount bin. His hands were buried in his pockets, and his face, normally plastered across business magazines and financial news networks, was carefully angled away from the security cameras. This was his ritual. Once a month, Marcus disappeared from his penthouse, from his driver, from his assistant's suffocating schedule. He walked into ordinary places and watched ordinary people live ordinary lives. He told himself it kept him grounded, that it reminded him why he worked so hard, why his foundation mattered, why the numbers in his bank account needed to mean something beyond themselves. But truthfully, he came to these places because he was lonely. And loneliness, he had learned, could not be solved with money. He moved slowly through the store, a ghost among the living. He watched a teenage boy carefully counting change for a frozen pizza, an elderly man reading the back of a soup can with trembling hands, a young couple arguing in whispers about whether they could afford name-brand coffee. Then he saw her. She stood at the end of aisle 3, one hand gripping a red plastic basket, the other holding the small fingers of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. The woman wore scrubs, faded blue with cartoon bears on them, the kind nurses or daycare workers wore. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and exhaustion lived in every line of her face. But it was the little girl who made Marcus stop walking. She had curly brown hair that bounced when she moved and eyes so bright they seemed to hold their own light. She wore a pink jacket with a broken zipper and light-up sneakers that no longer lit up. She was pointing at something on the shelf, tugging her mother's hand, her whole body vibrating with the pure, unfiltered hope that only children possess. Marcus stepped closer, pretending to examine a display of canned vegetables. "Mama, can we please? Please?" The girl's voice was a melody of innocence. The mother knelt down, and Marcus saw her wince as her knees hit the tile. She placed both hands on her daughter's shoulders, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 1,000 impossible choices. "Baby, I don't think we can today." "But you promised." "You said maybe. Maybe means yes sometimes." The little girl's logic was airtight in the way only a child's could be. The mother closed her eyes for just a second. When she opened them, Marcus could see her fighting back something that looked like grief. "I know, sweetheart. I know what I said. But Mama has to be very careful with our money right now. We have to make sure we have enough for the important things. Milk is important. You always say milk makes me strong." The mother's throat moved as she swallowed. "You're right. It does." She stood up slowly, bones and exhaustion creaking in a body too young to feel so old. Then she reached for the shelf and placed a small carton of milk into the basket. The cheap kind. The store brand with the label that looked like it was designed in 1987. The little girl's face exploded into pure joy. She jumped once, twice, and threw her small arms around her mother's legs. "Thank you, Mama. Thank you, thank you, thank you." The mother ran her hand over her daughter's hair, and Marcus saw her lips move in what might have been a prayer, or might have been a plea. They moved toward the checkout together, the little girl skipping, the mother counting items in her basket with the focused intensity of someone doing complex mathematics. Marcus followed at a distance, 3 people back in the line, invisible and watching. The cashier was a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a chain and the mechanical smile of someone who had scanned 10,000 items that day. She began pulling items from the basket: bread, peanut butter, a small bag of apples, rice, beans, the basics, the bare minimum. The register beeped with each scan, a digital heartbeat counting up toward a number the mother watched like a prisoner watching a clock. $22.48, the cashier said. The mother pulled a worn wallet from her purse. She opened it and Marcus could see from where he stood 3 bills and a small scatter of coins. She counted carefully. Once, twice. Her hands were shaking. The little girl stood beside her, hugging the milk carton to her chest like a teddy bear. The mother's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Can you take the milk off?" The little girl's face fell so completely, so devastatingly, that Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Marcus moved without thinking. His body operated on an instinct he didn't recognize, something primal and urgent that bypassed the careful, calculated way he normally moved through the world. He abandoned his place in line, ignored the confused look from the man behind him, and walked straight to the dairy section. His hand reached for the milk. Not the store brand, the organic one. The kind with the green label that promised grass-fed cows and no hormones and all the things that people with money never had to think twice about buying. He grabbed 2 cartons. Then he stopped. His hand hovered in the cold air of the refrigerated case, and reality crashed back into him like a wave. What was he doing? He couldn't just chase down a stranger and hand her milk. She would be humiliated, offended. She would see it for what it was. Pity from someone who had everything looking down at someone who had nothing. He had seen that look before. Years ago, when he was the one on the receiving end. When he was the kid in the thrift store clothes, the teenager who pretended he wasn't hungry, the young man who smiled and said he was fine while his stomach ate itself from the inside. Pride was sometimes the only thing poverty left you with, and he had almost stolen that from her too. Marcus stood frozen in front of the dairy case, 2 cartons of milk growing warm in his hands, while his mind raced through scenarios and consequences and the vast, complicated distance between wanting to help and actually helping. Then he heard it, a small voice, bright and clear, cutting through the ambient noise of the store. "Mama, why are you crying?" Marcus turned his head. They were near the exit, stopped by the charity donation bin where people left canned goods for families in need. The mother was kneeling again, eye level with her daughter, and her shoulders were shaking in a way she was trying desperately to control. "I'm not crying, baby. Mama's just tired. You're sad about the milk." The mother pulled her daughter close, and Marcus saw her lips move against the child's hair. "I'm sad I can't give you everything you deserve. I don't need everything. I just need you. The little girl said it with such simple, devastating honesty that Marcus felt his throat tighten. He watched the mother hold her child like she was the only real thing in a world made of smoke and mirrors. Like if she held on tight enough, love alone could fill an empty stomach and pay an overdue bill and make broken promises whole again. They stood up together. The mother wiped her face with the sleeve of her scrubs. She took her daughter's hand and they walked through the automatic doors into the parking lot, into the cold October evening, into whatever waited for them beyond this moment. Marcus made his decision. He walked to the register, the same one where the mother had stood minutes before. The cashier looked at him with mild recognition, the kind that said she had seen him in line earlier but couldn't quite place where. "Just these 2, Marcus said, placing the milk cartons down. $7.48. He pulled out his wallet, the expensive leather one his assistant had given him last Christmas. His fingers brushed past the black credit card, the one with no limit, the one he could use to buy this entire store without denting his net worth. Instead, he pulled out a $20 bill. The cashier made change, counting it back slowly. $12.52 is your change. "Keep it," Marcus said. "Sir, that's against policy. I can't accept." "Put it in the charity bin." He took the milk and moved quickly toward the exit, his heart hammering in a way it hadn't during billion-dollar negotiations or boardroom battles. This felt more dangerous somehow, more real. The parking lot was nearly empty. Overhead lights cast yellow pools on the cracked asphalt. Marcus scanned the space, looking for the woman and her daughter, and for a terrible moment he thought they were gone. Then he saw them. They stood beside an old Honda Civic, the kind that was probably older than the little girl. The paint was faded, the bumper held on with what looked like duct tape, and one tail light was covered with red plastic and more tape. The mother was unlocking the back door, helping her daughter into a booster seat that had seen better days. Marcus approached slowly, the milk cartons cold against his chest. He was 10 feet away when the mother sensed his presence and turned. Her body immediately tensed, her hand instinctively moving to shield her daughter. Her eyes scanned him quickly, efficiently, the way women learn to assess threats in parking lots at night. "I'm sorry," Marcus said quickly, holding up one hand while the other held the milk. I'm not trying to scare you. We're fine, she said. Her voice was firm, but her eyes darted toward the store entrance, calculating the distance, measuring her options. I know you're fine. I just saw what happened in there at the checkout, and I thought maybe we don't need charity. The words came out sharp and hard, years of dignity compressed into 5 syllables. Marcus stopped walking. I know you don't. Then why are you here? It was a fair question. Why was he here? Standing in a grocery store parking lot with 2 cartons of milk, trying to give them to a woman who clearly didn't want his help. What was he trying to prove? What did he think this would accomplish? The little girl poked her head around her mother's legs, her bright eyes curious and unafraid. Are those for us? She asked. Emma, get in the car, the mother said. But Mama, look, it's milk. The good kind with the happy cows on it. The mother closed her eyes, and Marcus saw her fighting a war with herself. Pride versus need, dignity versus reality, the impossible mathematics of survival that people with money never had to calculate. When she opened her eyes, they were wet but fierce. Why? She asked. Why do you care? Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. At the exhaustion etched into her young face. At the scrubs that marked her as someone who spent her days caring for others. At the fierce protective love she radiated toward her daughter. At the car held together with tape and hope. And he saw himself. Not as he was now, but as he had been. 23 years old, working 3 jobs, sleeping 4 hours a night, telling his kid sister that everything would be okay while his stomach growled and his landlord threatened eviction. Because someone did this for me once, Marcus said, and I never forgot. The words hung in the cold air between them, truth, raw and unpolished. The mother stared at him, searching his face for deception, for mockery, for the catch that always seemed to come with kindness from strangers. She found none of it. I can't pay you back, she finally said. I'm not asking you to. I don't even know your name. Marcus smiled for the first time that evening. You don't need to. He stepped forward slowly and placed both cartons of milk on the hood of her car. Then he stepped back, giving her space, giving her choice, giving her the dignity of accepting or refusing on her own term. Sarah pulled the phone from her purse with shaking hands. The screen was cracked in 3 places, held together with a clear screen protector that had seen better days. She looked at the caller ID and her entire body went rigid. I have to take this, she said, her voice tight with an emotion Marcus couldn't quite identify. Fear, maybe. Or dread. She answered, turning slightly away. Hello? Yes, this is she. Marcus knew he should leave. This was a private moment, and he had already inserted himself into her life more than he had any right to. But something in Sarah's posture made him pause. The way her free hand gripped the car door. The way her knuckles went white. When? Sarah asked. Her voice cracked. How long do we have? Emma sensed the shift in her mother's energy. She stopped admiring her milk and moved closer, pressing herself against Sarah's leg. I understand, Sarah continued. Yes, I'll figure something out. I have to. She's my daughter. The last 4 words came out fierce and final, a mother's declaration of war against whatever force was on the other end of that call. She hung up without saying goodbye. For a moment, Sarah just stood there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Her chest rose and fell with breaths that came too fast. Marcus watched her fight for composure, watched her try to rebuild the walls that had briefly come down. She was losing the fight. Mama? Emma's voice was small now, uncertain. Sarah knelt down fast, almost collapsing, and pulled Emma into her arms with desperate intensity. She buried her face in her daughter's curly hair, and her shoulders shook with silent sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and ancient and terrified. Marcus stood frozen. Every instinct told him to leave, to give them privacy, to return to his world and let them return to theirs. But his feet wouldn't move. Something about this moment felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, watching someone fall, knowing that walking away would make him complicit in their landing. I'm sorry, Sarah said suddenly, her voice muffled against Emma's hair. I'm so sorry, baby. Why are you sorry, Mama? Because I don't know how to... The words dissolved into tears that she could no longer hold back. Emma patted her mother's head the way children do when they understand something is wrong but don't know how to fix it. It's okay, Mama. Don't be sad. We have milk now, see? We're okay. The simple comfort of a child who had no idea that milk was the least of their problems broke something in Marcus's chest. He stepped forward. Is everything all right? It was a stupid question. Obviously, everything was not all right. But sometimes stupid questions were the only bridge between silence and truth. Sarah looked up at him, and Marcus saw in her face the look of someone who had just run out of options, out of plans, out of the strength required to keep pretending. No, she said. Everything is not all right. She stood up slowly, wiping her face with both hands. Emma held onto her leg, watching her mother with eyes too wise for 5 years old. I'm sorry you had to see that, Sarah said. Thank you for the milk, really, but we should go. That phone call, Marcus said carefully. It was bad news. It wasn't a question. Sarah laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that had nothing to do with humor. Bad news. Yeah, you could say that. She looked at Marcus for a long moment, and he could see her calculating something. Pride versus desperation. Dignity versus the reality of whatever that phone call had contained. Desperation won. My daughter needs surgery, Sarah said. The words came out flat and clinical, as if emotion had been carefully extracted from each syllable. She has a heart condition. Ventricular septal defect. A hole in her heart. We've been managing it with medication, but it's getting worse. Her cardiologist has been saying for months that she needs surgery, that it can't wait much longer. Marcus felt his own heart constrict. He looked at Emma, who was smiling up at him, completely unaware that her body was betraying her. That call, Sarah continued, was from the hospital's billing department. Our Medicaid coverage is being reviewed. Something about paperwork, about my hours at work, about me making $17 too much last month to qualify. They're suspending coverage until it's resolved, and the surgery is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. How much? Marcus asked. I'm sorry? How much is the surgery? Sarah shook her head. It doesn't matter. It's not your problem. I shouldn't have said anything. We'll figure it out. I always figure it out. But her voice carried no conviction. It was the voice of someone who had finally hit the wall that no amount of working harder or sleeping less or sacrificing more could climb over. How much? Marcus repeated, softer this time. Sarah looked at him, and in her eyes Marcus saw the exact moment she stopped fighting. $87,000, give or take. That's with the hospital's financial aid program. Without insurance, that's what they quoted me. I have $1,100 in savings. I've been calling every charity, every foundation, every grant program. I work doubles whenever I can. I've sold everything I can sell, and I'm still so far from enough that it feels like a joke. $87,000. For Marcus, that was a rounding error. Less than he spent on a watch he wore twice. Less than the monthly payment on a car he rarely drove. Less than the tip he had left at a restaurant last month without thinking about it. For Sarah, it was impossible. An ocean that couldn't be crossed. A mountain that couldn't be climbed. I'll pay for it, Marcus said. The words came out simple and clear, and the moment they left his mouth, he knew they were the most important words he had spoken in years. Sarah stared at him. What? The surgery. I'll pay for it, all of it. She laughed again, that same broken sound. That's not funny. I'm not joking. You can't just... People don't just... You bought milk. You don't drop $90,000 on a stranger in a parking lot because you bought the milk. Marcus pulled out his wallet again. This time he did reach for the black card. He held it up so Sarah could see it, so she could see the name embossed on it. Marcus Hale. He watched recognition dawn slowly across her face. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. You're... she started. Yes. The Marcus Hale, the tech guy, the billionaire. Yes. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. She took a step backward, nearly tripping over Emma. Her face cycled through a dozen emotions. Shock, disbelief, confusion, and then, heartbreakingly, shame. "Oh God," she whispered. "You must think that I told you about Emma because I recognized you, that this was some kind of con. I don't think that. I didn't know who you were. I swear I didn't know. I would never. I'm not that person." "Sarah," Marcus said her name firmly, cutting through her spiral. "I know, I believe you, and my offer stands. I will pay for your daughter's surgery." Tears streamed down Sarah's face now, unchecked and unashamed. "Why? Why would you do this?" Marcus looked at Emma, at her bright eyes and her pink jacket with the broken zipper, at the way she held the milk carton like a treasure, at the innocence that had no idea how close it had come to being stolen by circumstance and bad luck and a healthcare system that measured life in dollars. "Because I can," Marcus said, "and because once upon a time I was exactly where you are, and someone helped me, not with money, but with a chance. They saw me when I was invisible. They believed in me when I had no reason to believe in myself, and they told me something I've never forgotten." "What did they tell you?" Sarah asked. Marcus smiled, and it was genuine this time. "They told me that someday, when I had the power to help someone else, I should remember what it felt like to need help. They made me promise that I wouldn't forget where I came from." He looked directly into Sarah's eyes. "I haven't forgotten." Sarah covered her face with both hands and sobbed. Years of stress and fear and exhaustion poured out of her in waves. Emma hugged her mother's legs tighter, confused, but committed to offering comfort. When Sarah finally looked up, her face was blotchy and wet and more beautiful than any face Marcus had ever seen. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes. Yes. God, yes. Thank you. Thank you." Marcus nodded. "I'll need the hospital's information, the billing department, the surgery details. Give me everything and I'll handle it." Sarah pulled out her phone with trembling hands, pulling up emails and documents and numbers she had probably memorized from staring at them in the dark at 3 a.m. while her daughter slept and solutions refused to materialize. As she recited information and Marcus typed it into his phone, Emma tugged on his jacket. "Mr. Marcus?" He knelt down to her level. "Yes, Emma? Are you going to fix my heart?" The question. 3 weeks passed like a held breath. Marcus found himself thinking about Emma and Sarah constantly. During board meetings where millions of dollars were discussed like pocket change, during conference calls with investors who measured success in percentage points and quarterly returns, during the quiet hours of the evening when he sat alone in his penthouse, looking out at a city full of lights, and wondering how many of those lights shone on people who were drowning. He had kept his word. The hospital had been contacted. An anonymous grant from the Hale Foundation had covered every penny of Emma's surgery and all related medical costs. His assistant had handled it with her usual efficiency, creating enough bureaucratic layers that Sarah would never connect it back to the stranger in the parking lot who had bought her daughter milk. Marcus had asked for only one thing: updates on Emma's condition, medical reports sent through appropriate legal channels with patient consent. He told himself it was due diligence, making sure his money was being used properly. But he knew the truth. He needed to know she was okay. This little girl he had met for 10 minutes had somehow become the most important investment of his life. The surgery had been scheduled for a Thursday morning. Marcus cleared his entire calendar. His assistant assumed he was sick. His board members grumbled about his unavailability. Marcus didn't care. He sat in his office that Thursday, unable to focus on anything except his phone, waiting for the message that would tell him if Emma had made it through. The call came at 2:17 p.m. "Mr. Hale, this is Dr. Patricia Chen from County General. I'm calling with an update on patient Emma Rodriguez, per your foundation's request for post-surgical reporting." Rodriguez. Emma Rodriguez. Now he knew. "How is she?" Marcus asked, and his voice came out rougher than he intended. "The surgery was successful. Very successful. We repaired the ventricular septal defect completely. Emma tolerated the procedure beautifully. She's in recovery now, and all her vitals are strong. Barring any unforeseen complications, she should make a full recovery." Marcus closed his eyes and felt something hot press against his eyelids. And her mother? Sarah? There was a pause. I probably shouldn't share this, but given the Foundation's involvement, Ms. Rodriguez was remarkable. She held it together through the entire pre-op process, kept Emma calm and smiling. But the moment Emma went into surgery, she collapsed in the waiting room, just completely broke down. We had to get her water, a quiet place to sit. She kept saying, "Thank you," over and over. To us, to God, to someone named Marcus. Marcus's hand tightened on the phone. She said my name. Yes, several times. She said a man named Marcus saved her daughter's life, that he appeared like a miracle when she had given up hope. Security actually got concerned she was having some kind of religious episode. Dr. Chen laughed softly. "Is Marcus someone from your foundation?" She seemed very convinced he was sent by divine intervention. "Something like that," Marcus said quietly. "Well, whoever he is, he should know that what your foundation did here, it's everything. This family would have lost their home trying to pay for this surgery. Emma might not have gotten it in time. You saved more than her life. You saved their whole future." After the call ended, Marcus sat in his office for a long time. The afternoon sun slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in gold. Outside, the city moved and breathed and continued its relentless forward momentum. But Marcus was still. He had done it. Emma was okay. The surgery was successful. His intervention had worked exactly as planned. So why did he feel so empty? The answer came to him slowly, uncomfortably, because this had been easy. Writing a check, making a phone call, solving a problem with money. That wasn't sacrifice. That wasn't real change. Real change required something more. Marcus made a decision that would have made his lawyers weep. He wanted to see them again. Not as an anonymous benefactor, not as Marcus Hale the billionaire, but as Marcus, the man who had stood in a parking lot and seen something of himself in a struggling mother and her sick daughter. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "I need you to find an address for me." 2 days later, on a Saturday afternoon, Marcus drove to the address his assistant had provided, not in his Tesla, not in any of his expensive cars. He had borrowed his driver's 15-year-old Toyota, promising to return it by evening. The neighborhood was far from the gleaming towers of downtown. The houses here were small and tired, with chain-link fences and yards that ranged from carefully tended to completely abandoned. This was where people lived when they were one paycheck from disaster. Marcus knew these streets. He had grown up on streets just like them. Sarah's house was a small bungalow with peeling blue paint and a front porch that sagged slightly on one side. But the yard was neat, and there were flower pots by the door that someone had clearly tried to make beautiful, despite having no money for beauty. Marcus sat in the borrowed Toyota for 5 full minutes, arguing with himself. This was a terrible idea. He would scare them, intrude on their privacy, reveal himself in a way that would make everything complicated and awkward. But he had to see Emma, had to know with his own eyes that she was okay. He got out of the car before he could talk himself out of it. The doorbell didn't work. He knocked. Footsteps inside, light and quick. The door opened, and there was Emma. She wore pajamas with cartoon characters on them. Her curly hair was pulled back in 2 ponytails, and across her chest, barely visible above her pajama top, was a bandage covering her surgical site, but her eyes were the same, bright and alive and full of wonder. "Mr. Marcus!" she shouted, and before he could react, she threw herself at him, wrapping her small arms around his legs. "Emma, careful, honey, your incision—" Sarah appeared in the doorway, and the words died in her throat when she saw who was standing on her porch. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Marcus stood there with Emma hugging his legs, looking at Sarah, whose face cycled through shock and confusion and something else, something that might have been joy. "You came," Sarah said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement filled with wonder. "I had to see her," Marcus said. "I had to know she was okay. You knew about the surgery. You paid for it." Again, not a question. Marcus nodded. "The foundation was supposed to keep it anonymous." "The foundation with your name on it?" Sarah smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. "I'm not stupid, Marcus, and when they told me the name of the doctor, Dr. Chen, She's one of the best pediatric cardiac surgeons in the state. She doesn't take Medicaid cases. But suddenly she's doing my daughter's surgery, completely covered, rushed through in 3 weeks when the normal wait is months. She wiped her eyes. I knew it was you. I knew the second they told me the surgery was approved. Are you angry? Marcus asked. Angry? Sarah laughed, and this time it was a real laugh, bright and clear. You saved my daughter's life and you're asking if I'm angry? I went behind your back. I didn't ask permission. I just assumed. You assumed right. Sarah interrupted. Pride is great until your child is dying. You didn't take anything from me, Marcus. You gave me everything. Emma pulled on Marcus's jacket. Want to see my scar? It's really cool. The doctor said I'm a superhero now because I have a special heart. Marcus looked at Sarah, who nodded. It's okay. She's very proud of it. Emma pulled down her pajama top slightly, revealing the edge of the surgical bandage. They had to cut me open and fix the hole. And when it heals, I'll have a scar forever. Mama says it's my brave mark. It is, Marcus said, kneeling down to Emma's level. You're the bravest person I know. Braver than Batman. Way braver than Batman. Emma considered this, satisfied. Do you want to come inside? Mama made cookies. They're the kind from the tube, but they're good. Marcus looked up at Sarah. Is that okay? Please, Sarah said, stepping aside. Come in. The house was small but immaculate. Every surface was clean. Every item had its place. There was no clutter because there was nothing extra to clutter with. But there were pictures on the walls. Emma at various ages, smiling and bright. Sarah holding a newborn Emma, looking exhausted and radiant. A few photos of people who might have been grandparents or friends. No photos of a father. Marcus noted this but said nothing. They sat at a small kitchen table with mismatched chairs. Emma brought out a plate of slightly burnt chocolate chip cookies that she presented with the pride of a chef serving a Michelin star meal. I helped make them, Emma announced. I put in the chocolate chips before Mama cooked them. They're usually already in there, sweetie, Sarah said gently. But yes, you helped. Marcus took a cookie. It was simultaneously burnt and undercooked, an achievement he wouldn't have thought possible. It was the best cookie he had ever tasted. How are you feeling? Marcus asked Emma. Good. It hurt at first, but now it just itches. Mama says I'm healing super fast. She is, Sarah confirmed. The doctors are amazed. They said kids bounce back quickly, but Emma's been incredible. She wanted to go back to school already. I had to explain that she needs to rest for a few more weeks. I miss my friends, Emma said, and my teacher, Miss Patricia. She's really nice. She lets me be line leader. They talked for an hour about Emma's school, about her favorite things, about the stuffed rabbit she had named Marshmallow. Emma chattered happily, unaware of the weight of the conversation happening in the spaces between her words. Eventually, Emma's energy began to fade. The surgery had taken its toll, and even her remarkable resilience had limits. I think someone needs a nap, Sarah said gently. I'm not tired, Emma protested through a yawn. How about you go rest on the couch and watch cartoons, the quiet ones? Emma agreed to this compromise. Sarah set her up with blankets and pillows and turned on the television to a low volume. Within minutes, Emma was asleep, her small chest rising and falling with easy, healthy breaths. Sarah and Marcus returned to the kitchen. Sarah made tea with bags that had probably been used before. Marcus didn't comment. I don't know how to thank you, Sarah said quietly. I've been trying to find the words for days, but there aren't words big enough. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. You need to understand what you did, not just the surgery. You gave me my daughter. You gave me a future where I don't have to watch her get sicker, where I don't have to lie awake at night wondering if she'll make it to her 6th birthday. Sarah's voice broke. You gave me the ability to breathe again. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. I know what it's like to be helpless, to love someone so much that you would give anything, do anything, but nothing you do is enough. My sister was sick once, when she was little. Nothing like Emma, just pneumonia, but we had no insurance and I couldn't afford the medicine. I watched her get worse for 3 days before I finally stole the money from the restaurant where I worked. He had never told anyone this story. I got caught, Marcus continued. They fired me. Should have pressed charges, but the owner took pity on me. I was 18 years old, and I failed the one person who depended on me. That feeling never leaves you. So when I saw you in that parking lot, when I saw you having to choose between milk and dignity, I saw myself, and I saw a chance to rewrite that story. Sarah squeezed his hand. Your sister, did she get better? She did. She's a doctor now, actually, pediatrician. She says she chose it because she remembers what it felt like to be the sick kid whose brother couldn't afford to save her. You did save her. You did what you had to do. I stole. You survived. They sat in silence for a moment. Two people who understood the impossible mathematics of poverty, the way it made you choose between morality and survival, the way it taught you that sometimes love meant breaking rules. Can I ask you something? Sarah said. Anything. Why do you do this? The disguise, the grocery store, all of it. You could write checks from your office, donate through your foundation. Why do you need to see it up close? Marcus thought about how to answer, about how to explain the loneliness of success, the way money insulated you from reality until you forgot what reality felt like. Because I'm terrified of becoming someone who doesn't see people anymore, he said finally. I'm terrified of looking at suffering and seeing statistics instead of humans, of measuring my impact in tax deductions instead of lives changed. So I go to grocery stores and I watch people. I remind myself what it feels like to be on the other side. He looked at Sarah. And sometimes, if I'm very lucky, I meet someone like you. Someone who reminds me why any of this matters. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more distant, detached. You're just a person. Marcus smiled. Disappointing, isn't it? No, Sarah said firmly. It's perfect. They talked until the afternoon light began to fade. About Sarah's job at the pediatric clinic where she worked as a nursing assistant. About her dreams of going back to school to become a full nurse, but the impossibility of that dream with Emma to care for and bills to pay. About Marcus's company and his foundation, and the work he was trying to do. And slowly, carefully, they talked about how to move forward. I want to help more than just with the surgery, Marcus said, if you'll let me. Sarah stiffened. I can't be your charity case. That's not what I'm offering. I'm offering a partnership. I don't understand. Marcus leaned forward. My foundation does good work, but it's impersonal. We fund programs and initiatives, and I see reports about impact metrics and lives touched, but I don't see the faces. I don't see the Emmas of the world. He paused, making sure Sarah was really hearing him. I want you to work for me, for the foundation, as a community liaison, someone who knows what it's like to need help, who can identify the people falling through the cracks, who can make sure our money goes to the people who actually need it, not just the ones who are good at filling out grant applications. Sarah stared at him. You want to give me a job? A real job, with a real salary, benefits, health care that will cover Emma completely, and you'd be good at it. You know these neighborhoods. You know these struggles. You're exactly who I need. I don't have a degree. I didn't finish college. You're exactly what this position needs. Skills can be taught. Experience like yours can't. Sarah covered her face with her hands. When she looked up, she was crying again. But this time, she was smiling too. This feels like a dream. Like I'm going to wake up and none of this will be real. It's real, Marcus said. And you don't have to answer right now. Think about it. Talk to Emma. Make sure it's what you want. I already know what I want, Sarah said. I want to say yes. I want to take this chance. But I'm scared. Of what? Of owing you too much. Of this being too good to be true. Of messing this up and losing everything. Marcus understood. When you've had nothing, the fear of loss becomes paralyzing. You don't owe me anything, he said. This is a job offer, not a gift. You'll work hard. You'll earn every penny. And if it doesn't work out, we'll figure it out like adults. No one's going to take Emma's health care away. No one's going to leave you worse off than you are now. I promise." Sarah took a deep breath, then another, and then she held out her hand. "Okay," she said. "I'm in." They shook on it, and Marcus felt something shift in the universe, something clicking into place. From the living room, Emma stirred. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, and looked around until she found them in the kitchen. "Mr. Marcus, are you going to stay for dinner?" Marcus looked at Sarah, who nodded. "I'd love to," he said. Dinner was spaghetti from a box and sauce from a jar. They ate at the small kitchen table, Emma chattering between bites about everything and nothing. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he had enjoyed a meal more. As the evening wore on and the light outside faded to dark, Marcus realized something profound. He had spent years trying to fill the emptiness inside him with success, with money and power and the respect of people who measured worth in zeros behind a number. But none of that had ever made him feel the way he felt sitting at this table, with Emma telling him a story about a caterpillar she saw at school, with Sarah laughing at her daughter's dramatic retelling, with the warm glow of a home that had nothing and everything at the same time. This was what mattered. Not the board meetings, not the investments, not the empire he had built. This, right here, this moment of connection and hope and second chances. When it was time to leave, Emma hugged him goodbye. "Will you come back?" she asked. "If your mom says it's okay." "It's okay," Sarah said immediately. "Then yes," Marcus promised. "I'll come back." He walked to his borrowed car under a sky full of stars. Behind him, through the window, he could see Sarah and Emma silhouetted against the warm light of their small home. Marcus pulled out his phone and called his assistant. "I need you to set up a new position at the foundation, community liaison. Get the job description ready by Monday, and I need you to restructure my schedule." "Restructure how?" "I want 1 day a week with no meetings, no calls, nothing, just time for field work." "Field work? Marcus, what's going on?" Marcus smiled. "Something I should have done a long time ago. I'm remembering why I started all this." He hung up and drove home, but for the first time in years, his penthouse didn't feel like home. Home was a small house with peeling paint and mismatched chairs. Home was a little girl with a brave heart and a mother who refused to give up. Home was wherever people were struggling and hoping and fighting to make it to tomorrow. And Marcus Hale, billionaire, tech mogul, and former kid who knew what hungry felt like, was finally going home. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the community center on Fletcher Street watching Sarah work. She moved through the crowd with confidence now, clipboard in hand, stopping to talk with each person who had come seeking help. A single mother who needed childcare to attend job interviews, an elderly man whose prescription costs were bankrupting him, a teenager aging out of foster care with nowhere to go. Sarah listened to each story with the intensity of someone who understood that behind every request for help was a human being standing on the edge of a cliff. This was the 4th community outreach event the foundation had held this month. Sarah had designed them herself, insisting they needed to bring services directly to the neighborhoods instead of making people navigate bureaucracy and application processes when they were already drowning. She had been right about everything. In 6 months, Sarah had revolutionized how the Hale Foundation operated. She had created a network of community liaisons in 12 neighborhoods. She had streamlined the grant process. She had personally identified and helped over 300 families who had been invisible to the system. Marcus's board had been skeptical at first. A nursing assistant with no degree, no experience in nonprofit management, hired at a senior salary with full benefits. They had questioned his judgment, suggested he was letting emotion cloud his business sense. Then they saw the results. The foundation's impact had tripled. Local news had covered their work. Other organizations were copying their model. And Sarah had become the face of a new kind of philanthropy, one that centered the voices of people who actually understood poverty because they had lived it. Marcus watched her crouch down to talk to a little boy about Emma's age, making him laugh about something. The boy's mother looked at Sarah with the expression Marcus had seen before. The expression that said finally, "Someone who understands." "She's remarkable, isn't she?" Marcus turned. Dr. Chen, Emma's cardiac surgeon, stood beside him. She had volunteered her time today to provide free health screenings. She is, Marcus agreed. I heard you gave her a job. That's quite a career jump from nursing assistant to foundation executive. She earned it. Dr. Chen smiled. I don't doubt it. But it's still unusual. Most people in your position would have just written the check for the surgery and moved on. You got involved. You stayed involved. Why? Marcus watched Sarah help an elderly woman fill out paperwork, her hand covering the woman's trembling one, steadying it. Because I finally figured out what I was missing, Marcus said. I spent years measuring success in dollars, in returns on investment, in market share and quarterly growth, and I was miserable, empty. I had everything and nothing at the same time. He turned to face Dr. Chen. Sarah and Emma reminded me that the only measure that matters is human. Did I help someone who needed help? Did I see someone who was invisible? Did I use my power to lift someone up instead of just accumulating more power? And have you, Dr. Chen asked, done those things? I'm trying. Every day I'm trying. The event lasted until evening. When the last family had been helped and the last form had been filled out, the volunteers began packing up tables and chairs. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and helped, much to the surprise of the staff who still weren't quite used to seeing a billionaire carry folding chairs. Sarah found him in the storage room, stacking boxes. You don't have to do that, she said. We have people for that. I know, but I want to. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, studying him. You're different than you were 6 months ago. How so? Lighter, maybe. Less like you're carrying the weight of the world, more like you're part of it instead of separate from it. Marcus set down the box he was holding. That's because of you. And Emma. You changed my life. We changed each other's lives, Sarah corrected. That's how this works. She pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. Emma, wearing her school uniform, standing proudly in front of a science fair project about the human heart. She had won first place. She told her class about her surgery, Sarah said, about her brave Mark and how doctors fixed her heart. And then she told them about you. Marcus's chest tightened. What did she say? That sometimes angels look like regular people, that they show up when you need them most, that her angel's name was Marcus, and he taught her that kindness is the strongest superpower. Sarah's voice caught. Half the class drew pictures of you with angel wings. Her teacher sent them to the foundation office. Did you see them? Marcus nodded. He had seen them. He had a whole folder of them in his desk drawer. On hard days when board meetings ran long and problems felt insurmountable, he would open that drawer and look at those crayon drawings and remember what mattered. How is she doing? Really? Marcus asked. Perfect. Better than perfect. Her last cardiology appointment was incredible. Dr. Chen said her heart is functioning normally. No restrictions on activity. She's going to live a completely normal life. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears now. She gets to grow up, Marcus. She gets to have a future because of you. Because we found each other at the right moment. No, Sarah said firmly, because you chose to see me. You didn't have to stop in that parking lot. You didn't have to care. You could have walked away. She stepped closer. I think about that moment all the time. What would have happened if you hadn't been there? If you hadn't noticed us? If you had been too busy or too tired or too wrapped up in your own world to see a struggling mother and a sick kid, I would have missed the best thing that ever happened to me, Marcus said quietly. Sarah smiled. So where do we go from here? It was a good question. One Marcus had been thinking about constantly. I have an idea, he said, but I want your honest opinion. Always. What if we expanded this? Not just the foundation's work, but the model. What if we created a training program to teach other wealthy people how to do what we're doing? How to see poverty up close? How to connect with communities? How to help in ways that actually matter? Sarah's eyes widened. You want to teach billionaires empathy? I want to teach them what you taught me. That charity isn't about writing checks from a distance. It's about showing up, listening, seeing people as people, not problems to be solved. That's ambitious. Is it crazy? Sarah considered. Maybe. But the best ideas usually are. And if anyone can do it, you can. They walked out of the community center together. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The neighborhood was alive with the sounds of dinner being cooked, children playing, life happening in all its messy, beautiful complexity. Marcus's driver was waiting with the car, but Marcus waved him off. "I'll walk," he called out. Sarah laughed. "It's 3 miles to your place." "I know. Want to walk with me?" They walked through neighborhoods that Marcus had once only driven through in tinted window cars. They passed corner stores and bus stops and houses with people sitting on porches, greeting the evening. People nodded at Sarah. Several recognized Marcus now too, calling out thanks or just waving. "You've become part of the community," Sarah observed. "I'm trying to be." They walked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Sarah spoke again. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Anything. Are you happy? Really happy?" Marcus thought about the question. 6 months ago, if someone had asked him that, he would have deflected, talked about success metrics and achievement goals. Anything to avoid admitting the hollow truth. Now he looked at the world around him, at the life happening on every corner, at the work he was doing that actually mattered, at the friend walking beside him who had taught him how to be human again. "Yes," he said, "I'm happy. For the first time in longer than I can remember, I'm actually happy." "Good," Sarah said, "because Emma and I are cooking dinner on Sunday. Real dinner, not just spaghetti from a box. And you're invited. Actually, you're required. Emma made me promise. I'll be there." They reached the corner where their paths diverged. Sarah lived east, Marcus lived west. Before they parted, Sarah hugged him. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. For the surgery, for the job, for the friendship, for seeing us." "Thank you for letting me," Marcus replied. He watched her walk away, this woman who had appeared in his life in a moment of crisis and had somehow saved him while he was trying to save her. Marcus continued his walk home. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from his assistant about meetings and decisions that needed to be made. He ignored them all. Instead, he thought about Emma's science fair project, about the drawings of angels with his face, about the elderly woman whose trembling hand Sarah had steadied, about the teenage boy who now had a scholarship to vocational school because Sarah had advocated for him, about the fact that 6 months ago, he had been standing in a grocery store, watching ordinary people and feeling like a ghost, and now he was part of the world again, connected, necessary, human. His phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus almost declined, but something made him answer. "Is this Marcus Hale?" A woman's voice, elderly and uncertain. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Dorothy Chen. I'm Dr. Patricia Chen's mother. She told me what you did for the little girl, Emma, and for her mother." Marcus felt his heart rate pick up. "Dr. Chen is an excellent surgeon. She saved Emma's life. She told me you paid for everything, that you started a program to help families like theirs. She said you're trying to change how wealthy people think about charity." "I'm trying," Marcus said carefully, unsure where this was going. There was a long pause. Then Dorothy spoke again, her voice thick with emotion. 40 years ago, I was a teacher, 2nd grade. I had a student whose little sister was very sick. The family was struggling. The boy, he was so bright but so tired, working jobs trying to take care of everything. I could see he was drowning. Marcus stopped walking. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "I gave him my car," Dorothy continued. "My old Honda. I told him I believed in him, and then I moved away, changed schools, lost track of him. But I never forgot him. I always wondered if he made it. If that small thing I did made any difference." Marcus couldn't breathe. "What was his name? The boy you helped?" "Marcus. His name was Marcus. Marcus Hale." The street blurred. Marcus sat down on someone's front steps, his legs suddenly unable to hold him. "Ms. Chen?" His voice cracked. "Dorothy?" "Yes, sweetheart. It's me. When my daughter told me about the billionaire Marcus Hale who started this foundation, who was helping families personally, I didn't connect it at first. The name was the same, but I thought it was just coincidence. Then she showed me your picture, and I knew it was you. I tried to find you, Marcus said, tears streaming down his face. After you died. They told me you died. Dorothy laughed, a sound like sunshine. I didn't die, honey. I got very sick, cancer, but I survived. And I retired, moved to Florida, lost touch with most people. I had no idea you'd been looking for me. You saved my life. You in that car. You gave me time. You gave me hope. I've spent years trying to pay that forward, trying to honor what you did, and I thought you would never know. I know now, Dorothy said softly. And Marcus, I am so proud of you. Not because you're rich, not because you're successful, but because you remembered. You remembered what it felt like to need help, and you decided to help others the way I helped you. I promised myself I would. The day you gave me those keys, I promised that if I ever made it, I would remember. You kept your promise. You did more than keep it. You've built a life around it. They talked for an hour about the years between, about Marcus's sister, who Dorothy remembered fondly, about the foundation and Sarah and Emma, about the ripple effect of one small act of kindness 25 years ago. I want to meet them, Dorothy said finally. Sarah and Emma, the family you helped, the family that reminded you why you started all this. They would love that. We're having dinner on Sunday. Would you come? If you're still in the area. I'm visiting my daughter for the month. I would be honored. After they hung up, Marcus sat on those front steps for a long time, watching the last light fade from the sky. He thought about the strange, beautiful circle his life had traced. From the boy who needed help to the man who could help. From the recipient of unexpected kindness to the giver of it. And he thought about how none of it would have happened if he hadn't walked into a grocery store 6 months ago and allowed himself to really see the people around him. Sunday came, dressed in autumn sunshine. Marcus arrived at Sarah's house carrying flowers and a bottle of sparkling cider. Emma opened the door, wearing a dress she had clearly picked out herself, a riot of colors and patterns that somehow worked because she wore it with such confidence. Mr. Marcus, you came. Mama made a real chicken and everything. I wouldn't miss it, Marcus said, kneeling down to hug her. Emma's scar was barely visible now, just a thin line that would fade with time. But Marcus knew she would carry it forever, not as a mark of trauma, but as a reminder of what she had survived. Her brave mark, Sarah had called it. There's someone else coming, Marcus said. Someone very special. Is that okay? Is it a surprise? Emma's eyes lit up. The best surprise. Dorothy arrived 30 minutes later. She was smaller than Marcus remembered, frailer. But her eyes were the same, kind and wise and full of the quiet strength that had seen something worth saving in a desperate 18-year-old boy. Marcus met her at the door and hugged her for a long time, neither of them speaking, both of them crying. You look good, Dorothy said finally, holding his face in her hands the way she used to. Successful. But more than that, happy. I am happy. Come inside. Meet the people who helped me find my way back. Sarah and Emma were in the kitchen. When Marcus brought Dorothy in, Sarah immediately understood who she was. The recognition showed on her face. You're her, Sarah said. The teacher, the one who gave Marcus the car. Dorothy smiled. And you're the woman who reminded him why that mattered. They embraced like old friends. These two women who had shaped Marcus's life without ever knowing each other. Emma tugged on Dorothy's sleeve. Did you really give Mr. Marcus a car? I did, sweetheart. That was really nice. He's nice too. He saved my heart. Dorothy knelt down, ignoring her old knee's protest. Is that right? Can you tell me about your heart? And Emma, in the unself-conscious way of children, told the whole story. The surgery, the brave mark, the science fair project, the drawings of angels. They sat down to dinner together, the four of them around Sarah's small table. The meal was simple but made with love. They told stories and laughed and passed dishes and existed in that rare space where past and present and future all converged into a single perfect moment. "I want to make a toast," Marcus said, raising his glass of cider. Everyone raised theirs. To unexpected meetings in parking lots, to teachers who see potential in struggling students, to mothers who never give up, to little girls with brave hearts, and to the truth that kindness is never wasted, that it ripples out in ways we can't imagine, that one small act can change the entire trajectory of a life. "To kindness," Sarah echoed. "To kindness," they all repeated. They drank, and Emma, who had been given sparkling cider in a fancy glass that made her feel very grown up, giggled at the bubbles. After dinner, after Dorothy had left with promises to return, after Emma had been tucked into bed with her stuffed rabbit marshmallow, Marcus and Sarah sat on her front porch in the cool evening air. "That was perfect," Sarah said. "Having everyone together like that, it felt like family." "It is family," Marcus said. "Not the kind you're born into, the kind you choose, the kind you build from moments of connection and courage and showing up for each other." Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture that had become natural over the past months. "You know what Emma asked me tonight when I was tucking her in?" "What?" "She asked if you were going to be her daddy." Marcus's breath caught. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that you were someone even better, that you were her friend, her guardian angel, and that some people come into our lives not to replace what we lost but to show us what's possible." She lifted her head to look at him. Her father left before she was born. Couldn't handle the responsibility. For the longest time I was angry about that. Bitter. But now I think maybe it happened the way it was supposed to. Because if he had stayed, if things had been easier, maybe I wouldn't have been in that grocery store that night. Maybe we wouldn't have found you. Or maybe I wouldn't have found you, Marcus said. Either way, we found each other, and that's what matters. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the neighborhood settle into night. Lights came on in windows. Somewhere down the street, children laughed. Life continued its beautiful, ordinary flow. "I've been thinking," Marcus said, "about what comes next. And I want to step back from the company, not completely, but enough to focus more on the foundation, on this work, on being present for the things that actually matter." That's a big decision. It's the right decision. I've spent years building an empire, and it's cost me everything that makes life worth living. I don't want to be the richest man in the cemetery. I want to be the man who showed up, who helped, who remembered. Sarah squeezed his hand. "Then do it. Life's too short for anything else." Marcus looked at this woman who had become his best friend, his moral compass, his reminder of what it meant to be human. "Thank you for letting me into your life." "Into Emma's life? You didn't have to trust me." "Yes, I did," Sarah said simply. "Because sometimes you have to trust that the universe sends you what you need exactly when you need it. And you were what we needed. And apparently, we were what you needed too. You were. You are." They stayed on that porch until the stars came out, two people who had found each other in a moment of crisis and had built something beautiful from it. Not a romance, though there was love. Not a transaction, though lives had been changed. But a connection that transcended category or definition. A friendship born from seeing and being seen. From helping and being helped. From the understanding that we are all just humans trying to make it through, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is simply to notice, to care, to show up. Marcus Hale had walked into a grocery store 6 months ago, looking for a reminder of his humanity. He had found it in a tired mother returning a carton of milk, and in that moment, in that small act of witnessing someone's struggle, he had finally understood the answer to the question that had haunted him for years. What was the point of having everything if it meant nothing? The point was this: to use what you have to lift others up, to remember where you came from, to see the people others ignore, to act when action is needed, to be the miracle someone is praying for. Marcus had spent years searching for meaning and success. He had found it in service. And as he sat on that porch with Sarah, listening to the sounds of Emma sleeping safely inside, her repaired heart beating strong and steady. Marcus finally felt complete. Not because he had given so much, but because in giving, he had received everything that mattered. He had received his humanity back. He had received connection. He had received purpose. He had received proof that one person, in one moment, making one choice to see and to care, could change the world. Maybe not the whole world, but someone's whole world. And that, Marcus now understood, was everything. The grocery store on Fletcher Street still stands. The same fluorescent lights hum their tired song. The same automatic doors open and close, ushering people in and out of their ordinary lives. But if you pay attention, if you really look, you'll see something different now. You'll see people helping each other. A stranger paying for someone's groceries. A customer helping an elderly person reach something on a high shelf. Small acts of kindness rippling out like waves, because Emma tells everyone her story. About the day her mama couldn't buy milk. About the man who appeared like magic. About how one act of kindness saved her life and changed everything. And people remember. They remember that they have the power to be that person for someone else. To see someone struggling. To care enough to act. To do the unthinkable. To choose love over indifference. To choose humanity over convenience. To choose to show up. And somewhere in the city, Marcus Hale walks through neighborhoods with no disguise, no anonymity, just a man who finally figured out what it means to be human. And beside him walks Sarah Rodriguez, who teaches him something new every day about strength and grace and the dignity of people who refuse to give up. And in a classroom across town, Emma Rodriguez tells her classmates about the day she learned that miracles are real. They just look like people. People who choose to see, people who choose to care, people who choose to act. And that's how the world changes, not all at once, but one grocery store, one parking lot, one moment of connection at a time, one choice to be the miracle someone desperately needs. The end of one story, the beginning of countless others.